Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Pastoria Hydros going head to head with the Opelucid Frontiers. And as these two sides have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape, where for the Pastoria Hydros across the first 3 rounds, they have been absolutely perfect. They have not dropped a single game across any series, currently being 9-0 on the leaderboard. But the Opelucid Frontiers, who are having a strong start to their second season in the PokeType League TCG, they want to bring down the top of the leaderboard. But with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the water decks? Will it be the dragon decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And starting off this match for the Pastoria Hydros, it is their Lake of Rage deck. Now they've got the Suicune and the Feebas in hand, opting to go with the Feebas in the active spot, Suicune on the bench. They will be going up against the Opelucid Frontiers Bellchime Trail deck, who only have their Applin as their basic Pokemon, so they do set that out in the active spot. But here we go, game 1, as it is that Gyarados being pulled for the Hydros. They've got the Lyra, the Elemental Switch, and the Silver that they do play. This allows them to look at the hand of the Frontiers. They can pick one of the 2 supporter cards in there and cause the Frontiers to have to put it back into their deck, having to reshuffle it back in. They do choose the Professor's Research instead of the Will. There is also the Potion and the Memory Light, but now the Hydros know 3 of what is now the 4 cards as that Traveling Merchant is pulled for the Frontiers. Keeping in mind as well, this deck does generate Psychic and Grass type energy, and Applin requires at least 1 grass energy to be able to go on the offensive, and they are only generating Psychic type energy at the moment, as they do try that Traveling Merchant, but there's no more Pokemon tools in the top 4 cards of the Frontiers. This does allow the Hydros to not have to worry about taking any damage yet, as they do pull the Magikarp, and they are going to get a first energy onto Magikarp, as well as they do have that Gyarados with that wild swing. We have seen that force so far this season. As it comes back over to the Frontiers, they do pull that Dragon Breath Dramper, who does partner perfectly with the Will, where Will does permit them to get a head flip guaranteed on their next coin flip. They get a first energy onto Dramper, who does require 2 energy of any type. It is the Professor's Research being pulled for the Hydros, as they do have their own. They are able to get those additional 2 cards out of their deck. They get the second Suicune, they get the Rescue Scarf as well. And they do get that second Suicune to take that final bench slot, and Gyarados only requiring 2 energy for this Wild Swing. They are online. It does do 20 damage, but it does an additional 40 damage. What they get to do is they get to pick Pokemon from their own bench to be discarded, which means it can do up to 140 damage with that move, and that's before weakness comes into play. Now, fortunately for the Frontiers, they don't have any Pokemon that are weak to the Hydros, as they do pull the Giratina. Giratina requiring a single Grass, a single Psychic, plus a 3rd energy. But they do go, it seems, with the Grass energy for the Applin here, so it can go for that Ram. It does only do 20 damage, but they can start chipping away here at the Feebas. And it does come back over to the Hydros, who pull their second Feebas as well, and they do generate another water energy. As always, that is how it works for the Hydros, but they get a 3rd energy onto Gyarados here. Now, Gyarados only requires 2 energy, but they've got that Lyra, so they don't need to use an energy on Feebas. Lyra allowing them to retreat their active Pokemon if they've taken damage, and they are going to use that Rescue Scarf, picking one of the 2 Suicune, so that way it allows if they are eliminated from damage, but it has to be from an opponent's Pokemon. I do not believe Suicune will go back into the Hydro's hand, but it seems that they are hoping for that to be the case, because that is the Suicune that they are going to discard, and it will not be going back into their hands. So the Hydros have made a rare mistake. We've seen very few from them this season, but they do discard to get the first battle point, discarding Applin from this match, and it is the first to 3 battle points across these 3 matches. But for every game, including that 3rd one, every team gets 2 victory points. That 3rd game is just as crucial as the first game in this series. There is the second energy onto the Dramper, and they do play the Will to guarantee that this Dragon Breath, it will be a heads, and this will cause Gyarados to be left with that paralysis as well. This is going to do more than half their health, bringing them down to only 60 health remaining. This does put them into discard range of the Dramper. The Frontiers having just previously pulled their Altaria. The second Gyarados is pulled for the Hydros. And they do get an energy onto the Suicune. There's nothing they can do. They want to hit that wild swing. We can see them trying to go for it, but it is not going to work. So it will come back over to the Frontiers. This Drampa could get rid of that Gyarados. They do pull the Appletun, but their Applin has already been discarded. They do get a first Grass energy onto the Giratina. They're going for another Dragon Breath. They need to flip the heads, and it is the tails. This is exactly what the Hydros needed. This could have been extremely costly for them. They do pull the Traveling Merchant, but Drampa is unable to discard Gyarados from this game. They get a second energy onto that benched Suicune. They are going to play the Traveling Merchant, looking at their top 4 cards, trying to get one of their own Pokemon tools. There is the inflatable boat in there that they are able to take out. They do have to reshuffle the other 3 cards. Do place that inflatable boat onto Gyarados. This will bring down their retreat cost to 2. It does eliminate one of those retreat cost energies, but it is the Wild Swing. Once again, they're going with 2 extra Pokemon this time, so it's going to get that 100 needed damage to wipe Drampa off the board, and the Hydros take their first battle point here in game 1. This was looking dire for the Hydros they take their second battle point. The Frontiers unable to take one so far. They were unable to take away that Gyarados. So as the Giratina, it does receive its second energy. Now we know that if Gyarados was to discard 2 Pokemon, it's not enough to take out the Giratina. They do pull the Monotype though. And there will be 2 Pokemon on their bench. They do attach a third energy to the Suicune. And the Hydros need to think about how they want to approach this. They are going for the Wild Swing. They're just taking the Monotype though, so this will get that 60 damage. Halving the health of Giratina here in this contest as it comes over to the Frontiers. They pull the Will. This is the card they need. They have 2 Wills in this deck. They needed it for that second Drampa Dragon Breath, but they didn't get it in time. It is going to be that potion though that does restore 20 health for Giratina. When they go for the Crisis Dive, 2 of their energy are randomly discarded. Now they do have 2 Grass and a Psychic on them, but they do discard Gyarados from this matchup. The Psychic energy will be the energy remaining on this Giratina, as it will come back over to the Hydros, moving their Suicune into the active spot. That Cure Stream does 70 damage. The Milotic being pulled for the Hydros. They get a 4th energy now. Suicune only requires the 3, but this Cure Stream also allows Suicune to take 20 less damage in the next turn. Giratina left with only 10 health remaining as the Professor's Research is pulled for the Frontiers. And it is that Swablu and the Lyra being pulled for the Frontiers. They cannot play the Lyra, who does allow that retreat for free for the active Pokemon, has damage on them. They have the Altaria in hand, but this is not good for this Belchime Trail deck. They needed to take that Gyarados out at the earliest opportunity, but unfortunately they were unsuccessful, and this frees up the Hydros to take game 1 with this Lake of Rage deck over the Belchime Trail deck, discarding the Giratina from this match. But as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like and subscribe so don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. But as we have our first table reset, it is the Frontiers that will be going first. This time they have their Chaos Control deck, and we can see the Yanma plus the Gible. They've actually got the entire Gible line already in hand, and the Garchomp. Now this deck generates 3 different energies: the Fire, the Ground, and the Water type energy that get generated, as it is the Yanma in the active spot, Gible on the bench. It is the Remoraid from the Tojo Falls deck of the Hydros into their active spot. They've got the Poliwhirl, the Politoed, their own Professor's Research, and another inflatable boat in hand. The Elemental Switch has been pulled for the Frontiers, as they are going to play their Professor's Research, the Rocky Helmet, and the Pokemon Communication being pulled here for the Frontiers. Now they cannot place an energy as they are going first, but they do think of moving, and they do choose to go with the Rocky Helmet on the Yanma. They want to discourage the Hydros from going on the offensive, because if Remoraid does that 20 damage with the Water Gun to the Yanma, it will take 20 recoil damage from the Rocky Helmet, as they do pull their Artillery. It is the Memory Light and the Poliwhirl being pulled for the Hydros thanks to that Professor's Research. They cannot go for an evolution on their first turn, but they can start generating these energies here for the Remoraid, and they are opting to go with that 20 damage onto the Yanma, bringing it down to 40 health, as they do have the Artillery in hand. This will put the Yanma into discard range. There is the 20 damage back onto the Remoraid, as the Druddigon has been pulled for the Frontiers. And they do move Druddigon onto the bench, and it is going to receive its first and only required Fire type energy. Now it still does require 1 Water energy plus a 3rd energy of any type. Gabite coming online as well for the Frontiers. That Garchomp line requiring a Water and Fighting energy. Politoed once again being pulled for the Hydros, but it is the Octillery with that Octazooka that is capable of 50 damage, and the opposing Pokemon it does too. Every time they go for an offensive move whilst in that active spot, they do have to flip a coin, but unfortunately for Yanma, it will not be in that active spot for very long, because after this recoil damage from the Rocky Helmet, they are into the discard pile, and again the Hydros do take the first point. They want to continue this perfect season. They've gone 3 clean sweeps in a row. They're trying to make it 4. They do pull the rare candy to the Frontiers. And they are getting a second fire energy onto Druddigon, knowing that their next generated energy will be water, so it can go on the offensive on the next turn. That Dragon Claw capable of 50 damage. The Garchomp is online with that Reckless Shearing. They get to discard a card from their hand and pull a new card from their deck, opting to go with the Pokemon Communication being discarded. They get the Yanmega, but unfortunately that is a little late for them as the Hydros. It comes back over to them. They get the Rescue Scarf. They actually need another basic Pokemon in hand though, because if they lose this Octillery with an empty bench, they will lose the game, and this is not how they want to lose a first game in this season. They get 50 damage though onto the Druddigon, so Druddigon will have to flip a coin when it goes on the offensive, but if they can flip a heads and get that Dragon Claw off, it will get that 90 damage and wipe Octillery off the board. The Frontiers are looking to give the Hydros their first game lost. They're going to go for another Reckless Shearing after having pulled the Druddigon first. And this time it is the rare candy going into the discard pile and the second Garchomp being pulled for the Frontiers. They get the water energy onto the active Druddigon, and with this Dragon Claw they can get the win. They just need to flip the heads, and it is the tails. This buys the Hydros a little bit more time here, because Druddigon is also in discard range. The Fisher has been pulled for the Hydros. That allows them to get random water type Pokemon from their discard pile, but there's no water Pokemon in their discard pile. They haven't even been able to get one on the bench, but they can get another Octazooka and another battle point here, but it will be 20 damage back onto the Octillery, who is now in discard range just of the rough skin of a Druddigon. And even though they've taken 2 points, if they lose their active Pokemon, they will still lose the game, as that second Druddigon is in the active spot. The second Yanma has been pulled for the Frontiers. That is currently a fire energy being generated. It will be a fighting energy on this coming turn. It is another Reckless Shearing from the Garchomp, as the second Garchomp will go into the discard pile. And it is the Lyra being pulled for the Frontiers. Now they've already placed an energy onto the Druddigon as well. They move the Yanma onto the bench. Druddigon though, if it had damage on it, they could play the Lyra to get that retreat cost for 0. The second Octillery being pulled for the Hydro is still no other basic Pokemon in hand. They have 5 energy currently on the Octillery, and they are not going on the offensive. They do not want to lose this game due to recoil damage. The second Gibble has been pulled for the Frontiers. Very interesting circumstances for the Hydros. They can't go on the offensive. They are 1 point away from taking game 2, but they're also 1 point away from losing this game because they have an empty bench. The Yanmega coming online, receiving that fighting energy, another Reckless Shearing from the Frontiers. They are going with the Gibble that they just pulled in the discard pile. It is the Memory Light here. Now they cannot retreat Druddigon. It is a 2 energy retreat cost, and a Remoraid has been pulled for the Hydros. They're immediately going to move that onto the bench. They finally have a benched Pokemon. This is what they needed. And they are thinking of how they want to approach this. They do have a second Octazooka in hand. Octillery with the Octazooka, sorry. They have the inflatable boat. They're going through their hand, thinking of their options. They have the Rescue Scarf. And they're going with the retreat, so they do retreat Octillery, moving Remoraid into the active spot. They've got the Rescue Scarf that they are going to attach Remoraid. Again, if they take damage from an opposing Pokemon that causes them to be discarded, they will go back into the hand of the Hydros. We saw that mistake made earlier by the Hydros in game 1, that they were still successful in taking 20 damage from the Water Gun onto the Druddigon, 20 recoil damage onto the Remoraid thanks to the Rough Skin, the Gabite being pulled for the Frontiers. And another Reckless Shearing from the Garchomp as Gabite. They will go into the discard pile, and it is their own Rescue Scarf being pulled for the Frontiers. They get a second energy onto the Yanmega. And they are going to play the Lyra. This brings down that retreat cost of Druddigon to 0, allowing them to move Yanmega into the active spot unimpeded, and with the Bug Buzz they will get their first battle point, taking Remoraid off the table, but they do go back into the hand of the Hydros thanks to the Rescue Scarf. The Frontiers trying to bring this all the way back. It is Octillery moved into the active spot. Again, they've only got 20 health. They do pull their own Lyra. And they do have that Remoraid back in hand, so they do have a basic Pokemon. They've got 10 cards in their hand, now 9 cards. As they do get a first energy again onto that benched Remoraid, they are going for the Octazooka onto the Yanmega, who is brought down to 40 health. Again, they will have to contend with that coin flip to determine if they can land hits. The Frontiers have generated a fire energy, having just pulled their Yanmega, their second Yanmega, and they cannot go for the Reckless Shearer because they now have an empty deck. They have played all their cards. They are going to get a second energy onto the Druddigon. Their next energy will be a water type energy. They can try for this Bug Buzz, but no, they're going for the retreat. They will retreat the Yanmega. And they're moving the Garchomp into the active spot here with 140 health. They're trying to buy themselves a little bit of time. And it is the Quillfish being pulled for the Hydros. So they finally get another basic Pokemon. Still no Poliwags inside here. And the second Octillery has come online for the Hydros. It does get its second energy. And they choose not to go for the Octazooka. They are going to retreat the Octillery, it looks like. And they do go with their full health Octillery into the active spot with the Octazooka. 50 damage onto the Garchomp, bringing them down to 90 health, and now it is Garchomp, but Garchomp has no energy on it at this current time. They don't get to pull any cards because their deck has been completely emptied. And they are looking to get this energy onto the Druddigon, so Druddigon is set up, ready to go. And they've got the Elemental Switch here. They can move a Fire or Water energy onto the Garchomp if they so choose. And there is that Fire energy on the Yanmega moved onto Garchomp. This allows them to retreat Garchomp now. Druddigon being moved into the active spot, but Druddigon can only connect with 90 damage for this Dragon Claw onto the Octillery. They have put them into discard range. 10 health remaining. It comes over to the Hydros. They've just finally pulled a Poliwag here. They are going to get them onto that final bench slot. After so long of having an empty bench, this bench of the Hydros is now full. And they are going to get that energy on to the Poliwag. The Hydros now thinking about how they want to approach this. They do have Octillery there. If Octillery goes on the offensive, they will be discarded due to the rough skin of Druddigon. They do have the Lyra in hand. This can bring down the retreat cost of Octillery to 0 if they wanted to. They've also got the Memory Light. They have options here. It's very intriguing to see where they will go with this. They've already placed an energy onto Quillfish. And they're going to risk it. They're going with the Octazooka onto Druddigon. This will bring Druddigon down to only 30 health remaining. They're willing to go for the coin flip because Druddigon will discard Octillery because of that rough skin. The next point will take game to the Hydros are banking on that coin flip from the Frontiers to be a Tails. The Hydros need to choose. They're going with the Poliwag into the active spot. No Pokemon on the side of the Hydros can outlast a hit from the Druddigon. Druddigon needs to hit this Dragon Claw if the Frontiers want to take the first game over the Hydros that we have seen all season. No side has been successful in taking down any deck of the Hydros. They're thinking about where to move this fighting energy. They do place a fourth energy onto Druddigon here. They can go for the win, but it will be a coin flip. They are thinking about their options. What will they do? They're going for it. They're going for the Dragon Claw. They're going for the coin flip. Here we go. It's a Tails. It is a Tails. Druddigon is going to miss. Nothing is going to happen. The Hydros, they are going to pull the Mantike. They can get a Politoed, or sorry, a Poliwhirl online. This Wave Splash, it does 30 damage, and that is all they need to take Druddigon off the table. And the Hydros are still undefeated. They have ensured that they will take this series, that they are 4-0 so far this season, but now they're playing to go 4-0 in clean sweeps, 12-0 in every contest. Because this is game 3, those final 2 victory points up for play. So there's still something for the Frontiers to play for, but there is so much for the Hydros to play for. They could go 4 rounds without dropping a single game. They are playing their Cold Fusion deck, Mantike in the active spot, Ducklet on the bench. It's the Berserk Dramper in the active spot and on the bench for that Dragon's Den deck of the Opelucid Frontiers. But I cannot believe they went for it with that Druddigon. If that had been a heads, even that being a tails, that was intense. as it is the Splashy Toss from the Monotype here that does allow them to generate energy for the Ducklet on the bench. They've already got a Swanna in hand, plus the Elemental Switch and the 2 Crocodile. The Frontiers, with this deck, they do generate the Water, Lightning, and Fighting type energy, but this Berserk Dramper requires 2 energy of any type, so it does receive a first one, the Mantine being pulled for the Hydros. Now keep it in mind, in the TCG, Mantine does not evolve from the baby Pokemon Monotype here, so it can go straight onto the bench. Swanna is online with that Feathery Cyclone, does require 2 energy for 60 damage, but they do have to discard all energy onto them, onto their benched Pokemon. Not discard them, sorry, move the energy. But they do go with another Splashy Toss here from Monotype, who can only put it onto basic Pokemon, which is the Mantine, as the Professor's Research is pulled for the Frontiers. They do play that to get those additional 2 cards. They get the Jangmo, they get the Rare Candy. They've already got a Komaro, a Dragonite, a Giant Cape, and an Elemental Switch in hand. And they do look at getting this Lightning Energy onto the active Dramper. They can get 20 damage onto the Monotype. They're thinking of moving it onto one of the benched Pokemon here, and they are going for the Jangmo, as Komaro does require at least a Lightning and Biting type energy to get off that 130 damage, as the second Swanna is pulled for the Hydros. They do get a second 4, yes that's right, 4 required energy for the Mantine, so they are going to get Swanna into the active spot. That free retreat cost of the Monotype, the Feathery Cyclone, 60 damage onto the Dramper, but those 2 energy on the Swanna, they move them to the Mantine, so now Mantine is set up ready for that dive, and when it goes for the dive, if they flip aheads, Mantine takes no damage or any effects of damage in the following turn. The second Jangmo has been pulled for the Frontiers. It is going to be a second energy on to the Dramper. It looks like that's what they're thinking of doing, but now they're looking at the one on the bench. The Frontiers seem a little rattled potentially after having just lost that second game that they were so close to taking. They need to keep their focus here in game 3. They do not want to be the 4th side to succumb to the Hydro's ability to clean sweep sides. The Hydros, they've been on an absolute mission after finishing at the top of the leaderboard in last season's regulation season to not even make the Champions game. They are on a mission this season, as it is going to be that Elemental Switch played by the Frontiers to get it onto the active Dramper. And they're going to retreat them. I'm very intrigued with how they're going about this. They move that full health Dramper into the active spot. This Berserk does do an additional 50 damage when there is a benched Pokemon of the Frontiers with damage on them. But they end their turn, comes over to the Hydros, and they have pulled their Traveling Merchant, allowing them to look at their top 4 cards and pull any Pokemon tools into their hand, which is that inflatable boat. Now they do have to reshuffle their deck. Swanna does have that 0 energy retreat cost. Their Mantine into the active spot. There is a first energy onto the Swanna, and with this dive, it will be that coin flip. 80 damage guaranteed onto the Dramper, but if they get the heads, and it is the tails, so Mantine can take damage in this coming turn. There's the Pokemon Communication being pulled by the Frontiers. They are going to play it, so they can send a Pokemon card back into their deck, pulling out a different Pokemon card in return, but not by choice. It will be random, and we love random here in the PokeType League, as it is the Dragonair being pulled for the Frontiers, and with this Berserk, they are successfully getting that 70 damage onto the Mantine, bringing it down to 30 health. Now Feraligatr has been pulled for the Hydro. Still no Totodile in sight. There is a second energy onto the Swanna. And they go for another dive. This will wipe Dramper clean off the board, but they get that coin flip, and this time they do get the heads. This could determine who the Frontiers want to move into that active spot, as the Hydros with this Cold Fusion deck, they take the first point in Game 3. Jangmo is moved into the active spot. They have just pulled the Rescue Scarf, and they did just put their second Jangmo back into their deck. They can't get Komaro. They say, sorry, I have spoken too soon. They can get Komaro online because they do have that rare candy, but they don't have the energy required to go for the clanging scales, nor can they actually do anything to the Mantine. The Frontiers are on the back foot here. The Hydro is seemingly in control. And they do get that water energy onto the Dramper, as it is the will being pulled for the Hydros. This guarantees that this dive will be a head flip here. They get a third energy now onto the Swanna, who is being set up as that dive, 80 damage, more than half the health of the Komaro. This is guaranteed to be ahead thanks to that will. That supporter card has been a key asset for many sides in Season 84. The Dratini has been pulled for the Frontiers. Now, Dragonite does require a Water and Lightning Energy. We can see on this turn it's a Water Energy. On the next turn, it's a Lightning Energy being generated. So Dratini is online. It does receive the Water Energy. The Giant Cape will add 20 health to a Komaro, taking out a discard range from the Mantine. Keeping in mind though, Dragonite does require 4 energy in total as the Fisher is pulled for the Hydros. That can allow them to get any discarded water Pokemon back into their hand, maximum of 3, but they are randomly chosen. With that said, they have no discarded water type Pokemon yet, as another dive from Mantine onto Komaro and another heads as well. Komaro having 10 health left thanks to that Giant Cape as the Frontiers. They do pull their second Dragonair. It is the Waterfall Dragonair that they have pulled. They do get that Lightning Energy onto the Dratini, who is now evolved into that Waterfall Dragonair. Interesting choice there, as it is the second will being pulled for the Hydros, guaranteeing they can get another head flip. They don't want the Mantine to be taking any damage from Dragonair on the next turn. There it is, the dive. There's now 5 energy on the Swanna, another coin flip and another heads for the Hydros, protecting Mantine here in this active spot, and the Hydros are 1 point away from their fourth clean sweep, from their 3rd straight game here over the Frontiers. It is the second Dratini being pulled for the Frontiers, a second Lightning Energy onto the Dragonair, who can't go on the offensive, so they get Dragonite into the active spot. That Draco Meteor does 200 damage, split 4 ways. It does 50 damage. It can do 200 to one Pokemon. It can go 150 and 50. It can go 54 ways. The total has been pulled for the Hydros. It's now in that final bench position. It is 80 damage onto the Dragonite. Its health has been halved, but it's the tails that has been flipped by the Hydros. They need to get this Mantine off that active spot, but Dragonite only has 80 health remaining. The Hakamaru has been pulled for the Frontiers. The Draco Meteor is set up and ready to go again. 50 damage, split 4 ways, and the Mantine is taken off the board, but so is the Mantike, and just like that, the Frontiers get 2 points on the board. This is now a 1 point game. Swanna has 30 health remaining. Totodile has 60 health. Swanna is moved into the active spot with that Feathery Cyclone. It cannot do enough damage here. It is the Professor's Research being played, those extra 2 cards. They get the Feraligatr, they get the Ducklet. There's only 1 energy on the Totodile. The second Ducklet moved onto the bench. This is trying to give them options of what will be targeted down by the Draco Meteor. All of a sudden, things look like they're in the Frontiers' favour. And Ducklet receives its first energy. They go with this Feathery Cyclone. This will bring Dragonite down to only 20 health remaining. They just have to get the Swanna off the board. Now it's Crocodile with all those energy that were on Swanna. The second Dragonite has been pulled. If they can get either a Ducklet or Crocodile, mathematically, I think they've got this. I think the Frontiers, they're about to be the first team to take down a deck of the Hydros this season. They're going to go for the Draco Meteor. I don't think the Hydros can avoid this. This Cold Fusion deck. The Frontiers, they're thinking about it. They're trying to do the math in their head, but before we can even fully do it, they take down the Swanna. It is not enough to take down the Ducklet or the Crocodile, but they do get that extra point. They could have actually gotten bonus points, but the Frontiers, their Dragon's Den deck does take down the Cold Fusion deck, as next round they are going up against the Levincia Wonders with all the confidence of being the first team to take down a deck of the Hydros, who will be going up against the Petalburg Razors next round. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what cards you pulled today, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.